welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be doing a magazine review of the new Philosopher Magazine, which I bought recently, and I think this video ties in loosely with a social media a sort of awareness raising campaign that's been going on lately called Take the Mask Off. It's hashtag Take the Mask Off, which I will put in the below the video. You might be aware of it. It's going on for 6 weeks, a combination of blogs, videos, awareness raising about masking, covering different themes, different topics each week. The topic for the 6th to the 12th of August is how does masking affect mental health. So that's the topic for this week. The video I'm about to do on this magazine review doesn't cover this issue directly, but it's within that sort of context that I'm doing this video, and I think there are some interesting themes that came out of the magazine I've read that very loosely sort of tie in to this social media take the mask off. So, where did I put my magazine? Oh, here it is. Just remember now. Right, so here is the magazine that I read recently. It's the New Philosopher. This is a book magazine. They sell it in the UK in places like H. Smith and maybe some other newsagents as well. This is the second time I've actually read this magazine. I've previously just read articles online because you can access some of the articles from here online. But this is the second time I've actually gone and bought the magazine, and it is a really good magazine, and it's got some very intelligent content in here. This edition is all about power. The main theme is how power corrupts, and it only comes out a couple of times a year. The next edition won't be out until October, November of this year. So anyhow, so here goes. I took some notes on it. Now, I'm not going to cover all the articles in there because that would take a very long time. I'm just going to look at cover the articles in there that most resonated with me. So my favourite articles included the one entitled "Somebody's Watching" by Patrick Stokes. This article briefly explores the history of power, from its brute form, public executions and torture, to the more nuanced but arguably more pervasive and insidious use of power that exists in the Western world today. The philosopher Jeremy Bentham, in 1791, formulated the idea of a panopticon, which is a circular prison that contains a central watchtower. The prisoners are constantly under the impression that they are being watched, even when the tower is not occupied. Over time, the prisoners will do the guards' bidding without the need for any explicit instruction, use of force, or threats. The power pervades them like an invisible force, as if they were puppets attached to invisible strings. This form of power comes under the heading psychological modification, and is far more effective and efficient than overt punishment, because it's almost as though, like, in your head you've got a little sort of homunculus, almost like a little man or a little woman in your head, kind of making you act a certain way. So you've internalized that power, and it's almost like you become an automaton, and you just act a certain way without any need for force, without any need for lots of money being spent on ways in which they can get you to conform, to be a certain way. So obviously this is far more efficient and effective. It's more effective because you've internalized that power source. So there's not going to be any sort of there's not going to be any conflict, because you yourself kind of have taken this power inside you, and without you cease to question it. So that's like a ruler's dream come true, really. The philosopher Foucault, I have read some of Foucault's work a long time ago now. I did read Madness and Civilization. I'm not going to read that one again because it is a really, really difficult book, but I have read it. For French philosopher Foucault, later elucidated in depth the history of systems of power and punishment. Foucault argued that instead of destroying the body, states and governments had now developed the power to destroy the mind. This type of power was not confined to prisons, but utilised in schools and other institutions. This particular type of power really took off during the industrial era, and we're still experiencing its effects today. The governing bodies prescribe certain forms of behaviour that get labelled normal and punish anything that threatens to disrupt the status quo. Out of this landscape of normalisation, disciplining and categorising were formalised in the emerging subjects of psychiatry, criminology and sociology. So as you know, the Victorian era was very much the age of conquest. You know, not only were we trying to conquest the outside world, we were also trying to conquest the inner world of the psyche. And that's when all these emerging disciplines, psychiatry, psychology, sociology, that's when they were really born at the sort of end of the Victorian era. And as society became increasingly sort of straitjacket in a what's the word, sort of kind of put into a straitjacket and contained and formalised and charted and catalogued and sorted and obviously, like all throughout the ages, humans have tried to impose norms and standards of behaviour on each other. You could say that's kind of part of our human condition, that we've always done that. It's just what's different is, I guess, the extent and this whole sort of industry of power that really came into being at this time in history and is still carrying on today, a kind of bureaucratisation, as it were, of this desire to normalise and to create something that is a sort of total definition, really, of what it is to be human, and this expectation that everyone needs to follow it, and the sort of formalising of this in science and these other new disciplines that came into being. God, it's noisy. I think it's in here. Sorry, it's noise. So psychiatrists, for example, actively construct norms, and anything that challenges a norm is put into the category of deviancy. For example, I guess autism, really. Foucault argues that every single one of us is under the yoke of normalising power. From school tests, therapy, visits to the doctor, interviews, etc., we're all measured against a norm. Now, sometimes, of course, like, for example, going to the doctor, I guess is very important. This power isn't always a negative force. I mean, we do need norms and averages and things like that in order to recognise in order to recognise problems. For example, when a doctor takes your blood pressure, for example, they're measuring this against a norm, and that might change as new science comes to light. And I think different societies, different countries have different norms for blood pressure when it becomes a problem, and it's the same for like blood sugar and things like that. So again, it can be a little bit arbitrary, even for things like that, which are important for your health. But that's obviously like a positive use of this normalising tendency, because you need to know what is in a normal range in order to help someone who's gone out of that range. But it becomes more problematic when this is applied to society at large, and when it infiltrates classrooms and areas where it isn't so clear cut, and also where norms and things like that are no longer kind of relatively neutral, but become inscribed with all sorts of values, as it were. For example, that category of deviancy, that's the psychiatric category of deviancy. I mean, what is deviancy? Who gets to decide what is deviancy? It becomes a lot more problematic. So we're all under this yoke of normalising power. It's very much a Victorian, in terms of its institutionalisation and formalisation, that really took place in the Victorian era. So by internalising these normalising prescriptions, we will act in ways that conform to the arbitrary rules constructed by society, with no force ever needing to be applied. The powerful ruler, as it were, exists invisibly in our own heads, as I mentioned, like sort of like having a sort of homunculus, as it were, in our own heads. And we're often completely unaware that our freedom is being curtailed as we mindlessly conform. There is literally no getting away from normalising power, since it exists even when we are alone. Yet Foucault argues that by becoming aware of how power works, we can resist the yoke of normality and learn to restructure our consciousness even if habits die hard. The lessons in this article resonate with me from an autistic perspective, and that ties in with the Take a Mask Off campaign, because I try and mask my autism, repress autistic movement, for example, and things like putting my hands in my ears like this, which I'm doing now because there's a really horrible noise and it's really distracting, but things like putting my hands in my ears and stuff like that, I avoid doing that because I'm masking, and while I'm doing this video, I'm trying not to mask. So I might repress my autistic movements, for example, even though I really want to do them, because of that normalising power that I've internalised, even when no one is actually telling me to behave in a certain way or forcing compliance. So, and this is my experience, but I'd imagine this might be the case for other autistic people as well. But for example, growing up as a child, I was often told to look at people when talking, because eye contact doesn't come naturally. But eventually, I no longer needed to be told. I tried to make eye contact, despite the fact this was uncomfortable for me, as normalising power had been completely internalised. So what do you think about this idea of normalising power? I mean, let me know what you think. So that was the article there that I was talking about. Somebody's watching. It's a very good article. One of the best ones in here, by Patrick Stokes. And so another article that I found particularly interesting is called Power Scripts by Maisha Cherry. Maisha argues that life is like a stage where we each play different roles, and that it's a good idea to know our script and our lines, and to pay attention to the lines of other actors. This is particularly important if you are not a powerful actor, but have been assigned a small role on a stage because you come from a minority community. So as being part of the autistic community, we're not powerful actors. We have a minority role on the stage because it's dominated by neurotypicals, in inverted commas. And that would be the case for other minority groups as well. The powerful, through words, try and disempower the less powerful, and Maisha lists the different actors whose role it is to keep people in their place. And I thought this was really interesting. The first one is called the universal actor. They universalise the particular. For example, if I were to say autistic people face discrimination, they would reply that all people are discriminated against. You can't argue about that, so in a sense they're silencing the discourse, they close it down. Or that we are all a bit on a spectrum anyway. The universal actor can extricate themselves from a situation where they might have to admit responsibility or help someone by generalising a problem away, which of course trivialises it and makes the problem seem unworthy of recognition and remedy. And that one, we're all on the spectrum anyway, which I guess many autistic people hear a lot, I find it really offensive. But let me know what you think about it, because you might see it differently, but it really does, that's one of the ones that really, really irritates me. But that'll take another video. Another main actor is a gaslighting actor. This actor makes you disbelieve or question your own reality and truth. They might tell you, after you have told them that something is wrong, that you are overreacting and that you have completely misinterpreted the situation. I think autistics can relate to this a lot. For example, we might tell someone that a room is too noisy, only for us to be told that we are just too sensitive. If I had Well, yeah, I would be very rich by now, very rich, if I had £1 every time someone said that to me, and it's usually family members, and they just don't get it. They say, "Oh, don't be silly, I can't hear anything." Um, yeah, well, they can't hear anything, but I can. So again, it's kind of gaslighting you, making you disbelieve your own self, telling you you're stupid, don't be so silly, not listening to you, not being empathic, not being empathetic, what you say. In this case, your minority position, such as being autistic, is explicitly used against you. For example, they might claim that you can't possibly know what is in your best interest because you have autism and need special guidance, thus silencing your voice. Maisha argues that we can resist such oppressive discourse by continuing to say our own lines and not caving into other person's narrative. This can, of course, be easier said than done. So I thought that was a very interesting article. As I find it in here. Yes. It was very interesting. I can't find it right now. I was going to show you, but it would take me a little too long. So the next edition, as I say, should be out in October or November. I enjoyed reading all the articles, and they also included an analysis of torture, not so nice reading, Socrates' views on morality, how to control your feelings in Stoic fashion, something I really need to master, and an article about Machiavelli and political power, the power of money and wealth, and more. So I thought some of those articles in there were really interesting, particularly as they connect to that theme of masking. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video today. Sorry about this. I find it easier to concentrate when I do that, because otherwise I'll be like all really distracted and everything, so I'll have to do this sometimes. I hope you don't mind. That's me just being authentic, as this video is also about masking, you know. And if I can't be myself and doing my videos, I can't ever be myself. So, you know, I hope you understand, and I hope that wasn't too distracting when I do this. I'm just doing one video today. I've had quite a busy week, quite a stressful week. I won't talk about that on here, but it has been quite stressful and quite difficult, relationships and other issues. So, but you know, I'm still trying to do my usual routines and stuff. So next week, I don't know what video I'm going to be doing next week. It might be, I have been trying out quite a few recipes, so I might update you on those. So again, thank you for watching.